Hi, I'm Lindsey, and I'm talking with medtech industry leaders on how they change lives for a better world.
The inventions and technologies are fascinating, and so are the people who work with them.
There was a period of time where I realized fundamentally my job was to go hang out with really smart people that are saving lives and then do work that would help them save more lives.
I got into the business to save lives, and it is incredibly motivating to work with people who are in that same business, saving or improving lives.
What better industry than where I get to wake up every day and just save people's lives?
These are extraordinary people doing extraordinary work, and this is The Leading Difference. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Leading Difference podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey, and today I'm delighted to welcome to the show Spencer Jones. Spencer is the founder at XO Medtech and medtechvendors.com. He is an RN turned medtech entrepreneur with 12 years of med device leadership. He's a two-time med device CEO with 10 plus patents under his belt and has taken devices from idea to FDA clearance and product launch. Spencer has built sales and distribution networks, led product development teams, and raised over $10 million in VC and angel capital. Spencer founded XO Medtech in 2024 to create a digital-first medtech ecosystem, deploy AI-native tools for medtech operators through medtechvendors.com, and cultivate the next generation of medtech innovators. All right, Spencer, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lindsey. I'm very, very excited to be here. Like it's always more fun to be a guest than it is to host the pod. So absolutely thrilled to be a guest on the pod. Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's just, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to medtech.
Yeah, born and raised in Arkansas. I traveled a ton and lived in Memphis and whatnot, but grew up in a healthcare household. Dad did anesthesia for 36 years or something at the same place. So I thought I was going to be a CRNA, like actually started pre-med, took chemistry my freshman year while I was, it was just, I got a C and I was like, maybe med school is not for me. But anyways, did the nursing school thing, got out, started working, pretty quickly knew if you've ever spent any amount of time in frontline healthcare, you just kind of it's like a barrage of things that suck. It's just, especially nursing, the devices you're using are commoditized, like just the workflows are bad. Healthcare is very broken. It's no secret. Everybody says that. Everybody knows that. So anyways, I noticed pretty quickly that, hey, like, why isn't this better? Why can't this be like this? And, kind of had that mindset. And before I could even go through like critical care enough to apply to CRNA school, ended up patenting some devices in the vascular access space, really leveraged accelerator programs and the entrepreneurial support organizations that were in my area, in my region, I call it that, get that dirt money, which is like the before the seed, your pre-seed seed, before the pre-seed money. And also like the business training, right? Like I wasn't formally trained on business, stuff like that. So did the venture capital hamster wheel a little bit, took a device through class 2 de novo clearance, was doing ride-alongs, training sales reps, doing marketing stuff, managing our IP, managing clinical, 300 patient RCT that we had to do in the middle of COVID. Launched the product, and then past couple years, I left that company in 2022. Product's still on the market. They got clearance in Europe now, and et cetera. But just been working more in laparoscopic spine or laparoscopic surgery, orthopedic spine, and then doing some like consulting projects and things like that. And then XO Medtech and Medtech Vendors. That's been for the past 2 years like a big focus, and I know we're going to talk more about that. But yeah, so it's been a great journey. MedTech is I love it and hate it at the same time, but I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, frankly. So
Awesome. That's a great intro. Okay. So I enjoyed how you sort of went straight from, okay, so I, started the career, started in the industry, and then I got a bunch of patents. What were the ideas for the patents? Where did those come from? If we could just go back, what was that inspiration like?
Yeah. So I was night shift med surge, pretty big hospital in Little Rock. It was like one of the bigger ones in Little Rock, St. Vincent's, which is like CHI, St. Vincent, et cetera. And like one of my patients, well, the very first one was a dual lumen peripheral IV. Patient has a peripheral IV in. I need to get a blood draw. They're like, go stick his other arm. I'm like, why can't we get it out of his, IV that's in his forearm. And they were like, well, you don't want to contaminate, the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And I was like, well, PICC lines have 2 lumens. So, I was like, why couldn't we just have a second lumen on, and I was like, do those exist? And they didn't really exist. There was kind of one that existed, but it was more of like a longer extended dwell peripheral. And, you kind of needed ultrasound to place it. You didn't really place, normal nurses on the floor weren't going to place it. And so that one was just sheer, I experienced something that I was like, dude, you're kidding me. There's got to be a better way to do this. You know what I mean? And, kind of similar approach. And that one that was the very first one. So I was like doing these drawings on note cards and then like meeting with the patent attorney. And I was like, did that provisional filing and wrote the patent myself and the claims and all this stuff. And the guy thought I was like, just, okay, yeah, I'll file the provisional for you, bro, whatever. File the provisional, ended up like going to a different attorney because that guy was kind of just not taking me seriously. And so ended up going to a different person, filed the non-provisional, started raising all this money. And that original attorney reached out later, was like, oh, it's so great, glad to see you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, whatever. But then the second one, which was Safe Break Vascular, had the kind of similar. Patient was like, had patients pulling out their IVs, pulling out lines, and it's a million things. It's walkie-talkies, so like Alzheimer's, dementia, memory care type stuff. It's TBIs, it's agitation, sundowners, it's you're coming off medication, you're drowsy, you forget you're hooked up, you go to the bathroom, you trip on it, the nurse trips on the tubing. There's like a million reasons how, where a mechanical force can get applied to an IV line. And same thing, I was just like, man, like this, it feels holding on for dear life is like the wrong approach because skin is only so strong, you get skin tears. Adhesives, you only want them to be so strong. And it just, wrapping it up, then you can't assess the site, you can get infiltration. So it didn't feel like any of the options we had were great. That one, I started to do patent research literally on the floor at the hospital. Like that night, I was like, because I knew enough then, found someone that had patented it, like same exact concept. Wow. It was a nurse and design was bad. Like the design, it had springs in it and it was just like not manufacturable and not a good design, but there were like, conceptually it was like spot on. And then there were some elements of it that I was like, this would be very useful to have if I was going to like actually do this. So me and somebody I'd met in an accelerator program, we bought the patent from him for 20 grand, which was a steal of a deal. It was like 10K up front, 10K after 18 months. And and then we turned around and raised a $1 million seed round within 9 months after acquiring the patent, got into an accelerator 0 to 510, shout out to them, but acquired the patent in February, got it early March, got into 0 to 510 in April, went there in May, closed our seed round of $1 million in December. So it was like a 9-month, ordeal.
Wow. That's awesome. I love the stories. I love the fact that it was from boots on the ground going, okay, I see this problem. There's got to be a better solution. That's super cool. So, all right. So you have these patents, you're going and you're working with accelerators. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, especially since you mentioned, you didn't necessarily have the business background. So there was probably a bit of a learning curve to that whole, how do you get your idea from your note card drawing to commercialization? So I'd just love to hear about your experience.
Yeah. So I did one accelerator before 0 to 510. I basically did 2 within about a year of each other. It was like back to back. But the first one I did, it was industry agnostic. So it was just a lot of like mentorship and lean canvas, startup methodology, kind of business practice stuff like accounting 101, building financial forecasts and models and like all of that stuff. So I really learned a ton about kind of just, non-device specific stuff there. Obviously I was learning a ton about device stuff along the way. But then once I got to 0 to 510, that's when things kind of like really, and I won that first accelerator. It was like a competition. And so I had 150K and I was like, oh, wow. So maybe this is going to be a career path because I was still working full time as a nurse. Mm-hmm. And then I got into the second one. 0 to 510 was amazing. Alan Daisley was running it. James Bell was like the co-director, I think. And it was like boot camp. It was like, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. It was like sessions and mentor hours and office hours. And all right, we're done with that. You guys work on this for an hour and a half. We're going to come back and talk about like the finished product and you better have it done. You know what I mean? And it was every day. I lived up at this building. It was amazing. Sponge mode, it was one of those environments where you're just like constantly soaking it in and learning and like you can feel your brain expanding like every day. You wake up excited. And that one was amazing. Met a ton of people that I still work with today. Met my co-founder at XO Medtech, met him at that accelerator. But yeah, it was just, that one was amazing. I was like life-changing, came back from that and I was like, this is what I was meant to do. I felt like I, found my calling. And so, yeah, shout out to the people there that, were a part of that.
Love it. Excellent. So, okay. So you found your co-founder for XO Medtech, and this is great because I wanted to dive into that. So you've now successfully taken several products to market, and of course you have a lot of other great industry experience. How was it different starting XO Medtech and medtech vendors than perhaps other things that you'd done in the past?
Yeah. I'm going to say it was way easier, just
Good.
to be honest. I think we were doing a lot. We started building XO Medtech in 2022, 2023. And at that time, a lot of it was like, it was really focused on the community and the training platform and the resources and kind of all the videos and things that we put in there, which I still like to this day will stand on it that like if you're an early stage innovator and you want to like kind of internally like level yourself up, right? There's like no better place than like XO Medtech and the training and inside there to do that, right? But yeah, we started doing it at a time when AI was starting to become like ChatGPT, what was it, 4 was coming out or whatever. So we started it kind of before the wave. And then as we were continuing to build it in like 2023, which was like the meat of us building it, it was like kind of starting to become more of a thing, but we still weren't really using it that much. But then as we really went into kind of like launch and growth mode in 2024, it was just like a huge tailwind and like being able, and it continues to be, but like not having to raise, $3, $4, $5 million to get a business off the ground and to get to a point where you can start selling something is just incredible. I mean, like we're so agile and can move so quickly, and we don't have any investors. We don't want any investors. So like our speed at which we can move is unbelievable. And coming from somewhere where it's, oh, you want to put out something for marketing, route it through the quality management system, and like maybe it goes out in 2 weeks. We can go from like idea to feature in a week. You know what I mean? Let alone like idea to like press release, right?
Yeah.
That's 10 minutes if we want it to be, right? So anyway, it's a lot easier and it takes nothing away. There's some incredibly rewarding parts of kind of my medtech journey and stuff like that. Like the day we got FDA clearance and X, Y, and Z, whatever date, first sale and getting our first GPO contract. But it's definitely more, I would say, day to day, just like the exhilarating agility, excitement type stuff that you like don't really get with medtech. And I'm not taking anything away from still a medtech person through and through. And I'm sure at some point I'll, do another device. We're developing another device at Lapivation. So I'm in Combo Spine. So my hands are still in it, but I love, love, love what we do at XO Medtech. It's so much fun.
Awesome. Well, I love hearing that. So tell us a little bit about both XO Medtech and medtech vendors and their focuses.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, we started XO Medtech and it's a online community. So think like school, like SKOOL, school or Circle, or there's some other mighty networks like we use Circle, but it's whether you're ideation or just like curious about medtech all the way through like Series A, really, we've got, there's community feed, people are posting. I mean, we posted, Project MedTech, event stuff, discounts, a lot of exclusive stuff where I think we added, it was like $3,000 or $4,000 worth of discounts. Like just for being like, once you join XO Medtech. But then there's that primary feed people. It's like a massive exchange of value. And it's not like LinkedIn. There's no promotion. Like we will take your post down if you're like nakedly promoting your own stuff or your services, whatever. The whole point of it is to be a massive exchange of value. So, hey, we did some like really cool, testing, ETO sterilization testing on coiled tubing to see how it retained its memory. Here's what we found. Your pictures, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that, where it's like kind of giving people behind the curtain peeks at your own organizations, or that kind of those moments of alpha, those nuggets that you found, and just sharing it so you can have, and they're doing the same and everybody's better for it. But then we have a training course and then some other like mini courses, probably a couple dozen downloadable resources. So these are like, pre-built pro formas, budget forecasts, IP stuff, due diligence type stuff, like stuff to help you get your data room beefed up and looking good. And we do videos. There's some live events every now and then. So that was very focused on the founder side, you know what I mean? Like the entrepreneur side. my co-founder used to run a med device venture studio. So like doing like business engineering, business development engineering, kind of market related stuff for like early stage, largely like clinician inventors and stuff like that. He used to run a group that did that. And we knew we wanted to kind of start to do more offerings that kind of for that side of the table, like the CDMO, contract manufacturer, design and development group side of the table. So we started building at medtechvendors.com and launched it in 2025, February 2025, and then did kind of a relaunch with adding some like agentic AI features in, I think at the end of the summer last year. But at its core, I always say this analogy, it's like Angie's List, right? Angie's List, what do they do? Well, it connects people with local pros, allows them to like evaluate, engage them really easily, get their stuff done quickly from trusted people. You know what I mean? So we have the same approach. We help device teams, and that could be device teams at large, medium, small, or startup organizations or tech transfer offices, whoever. We help those device teams find, evaluate, and engage contract manufacturers, CDMOs, testing facilities, design and development groups, one-man band engineers, whatever, through the platform. We have an agentic AI chat. So like it'll ask you questions about your device. It'll start recommending, hey, do you need this? Do you need these types of services? Are you looking for this type of vendor, this type of vendor? It pre-populates forms. It generates matches for you. You can review each vendor's profile, one click, get email intros or request quotes. And we're adding some really cool additional features around some different like skills that you can run. So think like a reimbursement skill or different predicate device selection skill, whatever. And so those are all going to be like linked up to this kind of AI agent. I don't want to say too much because we're still building it. I'm like really excited about it, but there's other things that we're adding to it, the ability to do quote visualization, and trying to make it kind of a home away from home, a hub where you can track execution, get things done, engage vendors, and kind of evolve it more laterally in kind of the life cycle journey, not just, hey, I'm looking for a vendor, because that's a very cute point in time in in a person's journey, but trying to expand it out to say the period of time when you're doing X and Y and Z and looking for a vendor, so we can get some really more sticky use and add more value. So that was that. And we've started really focusing on some more like intimate, I would say, engagements with CDMOs and contract manufacturers, focused on giving their sales and marketing teams massive leverage using AI and AI native tools.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. So going back a little bit to XO Medtech, I know, you mentioned that there's a lot of resources available, but one of the things that I think is super cool, and I would love if you just share a little bit more about this, is you have a course that I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's basically sort of MedTech Innovation 101. I think you even call
playbook,
it like the playbook, and you call it like the MBA for somebody who needs to learn. So can you just share the value of that and sort of what made you go, okay, I have, the expertise in all these different areas enough to be able to share the journey from start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the value there partially comes, I think speaking about value, you got to speak about kind of like why there was a gap there, like why it didn't exist, whatever. There's just a lot of really bad content in medtech. There's a lot of stuff that reads, there's guidance documents, ISO and this and that, like those are tough reads, right? And then, the content around, here's how you really fundamentally apply these guidance documents, and here's how all this fits together. And it just felt like everything was, I don't know what the opposite of like inside baseball is, right? Like that kind of, hey, here's what you really need to know.
Yeah.
Whatever the opposite of that is how medtech content felt like to me everywhere. It was just like polished press releases, really like consulting speak. You got to be strategic with your analysis. It's okay. You got to find your champions. How do I find them? What do I tell them? How do I engage them? So it was just, that was the big gap. So I think the value, what we tried to do with the playbook was, give, like I said, pre-seed all the way through Series A, the right information, like the right depth on the right topics in the right order with the right assets. So resources, downloads, all that stuff along the way, so that you can go cradle to grave on this and basically be a novice. Or we've had people that have launched products and gone through it and they were like, holy crap, I wish I would have had this 5 years ago. But the whole idea is to basically not make you a supreme expert on any one of those topics. There's 46 different lessons, 47, and like you can get through each one in probably 20 minutes, right? 15 minutes. but not to make you an expert on each individual topic, but to give you like a dangerous level of information on any one, and then make you able to dive deeper on any of them, very quickly and easily. So like when you meet with your, a regulatory consultant or an IP attorney or go down the list, they're not saying words you don't know.
Right.
For the most part. You're not paying them $300 an hour, $500 an hour to educate you on definitions and concepts, right? You're applying principles and evaluating strategy versus what's that again? Like, how does this, what's the timeline for that? Because that, that's just not good for anybody, So that's kind of the main value prop thrust of it. And I frankly didn't think it existed, but like proof's in the pudding. Like we've sold it to accelerator programs, we've sold it to hospital, innovation departments, we've sold it to incubators, like trade associations that have like their like kind of innovation arms. It works. Like when people do it, it works. It's funny, we can talk about this too, but like you can lead a horse to water thing. It's funny how many people say they want to be entrepreneurs and say they want to be innovators, and really they just want to just yap and they don't actually want to put the time in. I'm telling you, it's like crazy how many, fake entrepreneurs there are out there. But it's okay. It's okay. Like I think there needs to be some cleaving or weaning or calving of the herd to some degree, because we've got, I don't know, and maybe we need to develop them more, but it is frustrating seeing it firsthand when it's like, you have a really cool device, but you are so uninvestable and you have no interest in being coachable that it just hurts me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that you've done that resource, and super excited to see hopefully a lot of innovation actually happen and be successful as a result of that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this community now, and I'm wondering if there are any moments that kind of stand out to you, maybe as you've built the company, XO Medtech, also medtech vendors, that kind of enforce, wow, I am in the right place at the right time.
I definitely, it's really, there's not, I would say, any huge singular moments. I mean, we've had people like get business from coming on the XO Medtech podcast. We've had people meet, new clients, new strategic partners type stuff like in the XO Medtech community. I mean, I've made a ton of friends in the XO Medtech community. People that I talk to, every week or two. Brad Shirley, I'll mention him. He's fantastic. And like I've learned from him, he's learned from me. We've both learned stuff from the community. I really do think it's those, whether it's a LinkedIn DM or, somebody messaging me in XO and they're like, hey, I just went through this lesson. It was like so good, blah, blah, blah. I think those little things honestly like power me up, give me juice, give me energy, and like reading, we did a ton of, we probably got 30 people that did kind of like a pre and post assessment, and they gave their feedback on the playbook so we could refine it like as we were, after launch and all that stuff, because we're constantly trying to improve it. And reading the testimonials and people just being like, yeah, like this is killer. People that are brand new, people that have been in the industry for 20 years that went through it. I think it's kind of like a myriad of those things. I would say some of the stuff on, and that's on the XO Medtech. I think some of the stuff on the medtech vendor side and what we're doing with, kind of campaigns and the tools that we're developing and the work that we're doing there, like we are fully an AI native organization. There is just not at all like a significant amount of people in medtech using AI to like actually not in their products. I don't care about that. Like I'm talking about like in their day-to-day operations and whatnot. And like, we're trying to change that. And so like in that respect, like we'll come out with things, release features, release products, build custom tools for CDMOs and, the looks on their faces and like how amazed that they are at X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it's like stuff where it's, hey, I'm like building them just showing them how to do something with not even a tool that we built, and like they're blown away. And anyways, all of that stuff, I feel like, man, like this is where I'm supposed to be, because like we've got to make medtech a more attractive investment opportunity. We've got to compress the development cycles and the cost to develop and the time to develop and get things to market, and I look at AI drug discovery for the pharma world as like a huge way that that's happening. But we have to have that similar type of like, we need to engage with this. It will be good for our ecosystem and industry as a whole, becoming more investable, becoming more cash efficient and all of that stuff. Because you've seen other sectors, software is taking money from early stage med tech like nobody's business. People are investing in AI. And, I just looked at the annual report from like HSBC, the venture report, and like early stage med tech funding continues to be down. You know what I mean? So we just got to do something. Like I feel like it's an existential issue for early stage med tech to get better at being scrappy and using AI.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much opportunity there. Yeah. I love that you're helping to promote that. So you've gotten to lead a number of different companies now and through very challenging milestones. And so I'm curious, how has your own leadership philosophy developed over the course of your career so far?
Ooh, what a good question. I hate to say this, but I've almost gotten more cynical, you know?
Okay.
Well, and it's like I try to be very protective of my time and like protective of the time of the people that I work with,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't mean I'm not willing to like go the extra mile and whatnot, but I think it's about respecting people's time,
Hmm.
right? I think honestly my leadership philosophy, I think a lot of it revolves around just like incredibly clear communication and like staying above the fray, no riffraff, just executing
Hmm.
and moving fast and like keeping expectations really high because I feel like when you've got complacency, at the top, it like doubles every rung of the ladder lower that you go in the org chart or whatever. So I think like pace, pace and hyper clear communication, like no subversive or passive aggressive or anything. It's just like straight up like I'll just exactly tell you if I wasn't happy with something or whatever. But I don't know, like I feel like, leadership style too, like I think so much of it boils down to communication for me. It's just like really, really clearly communicating and like making sure that people understand what good work looks like and what them doing a good job looks like and where I think being clear about expectations, really clearly communicating those expectations around like work product, what it should look like, how fast it should get done, how many updates I need or how many questions I expect to get
Hmm.
as you're doing this, what resources I expect you to expend and explore before you come to me with something you could Google, like all of that stuff. But honestly, it's kind of a tough question thinking in like the more immediate past, just because I feel like there's been such like almost like a flattening of org charts, frankly, with the way that we're using technology and AI these days, where I feel like in the companies I'm operating in right now, like it's mainly just principles and like lower level stuff. Like we're either delegating to AI agents or delegating to like VAs that are in a different country or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so there's just been a big flattening. 7 years ago, 6 years ago, I was managing new grads out of college, 2 or 3 at a time, and, having to, like, have these kind of, like, you know, like, brotherly, like, talks with, these types of things, like, "Hey, like, you really gotta do this," and, like, coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, we have to have that stuff. I'm just not in our organization and honestly, the organizations I'm in right now in startup world, I just feel I don't know, like, I feel like I haven't seen that. And I know a lot of organizations that are small and nimble and whatever, and I feel like the org charts are getting real flat in terms of like people that are getting managed. It's a lot of agents getting managed, frankly.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting insight too. But I really do think that to your point of coaching and mentorship and how much of a difference that makes, but especially I was just on this conversation earlier today of the critical importance I feel that there is about establishing expectations across the board, whether
Yeah.
it's your clients, your employees, your coworkers, just making sure that everybody's on the same page is such a critical aspect of setting yourself up for success. So, yeah, I love that you touched on that because, like I said, literally earlier today.
Yeah. And can I quick aside here?
Yeah.
It's on topic, but before we move on,
Yeah.
I'm not the first person to think this or say this, but I'll die on this hill. The more you use AI when you're using it the right way, right? The better leader and specifically the better communicator you will become, right? Why? So much of interpersonal office drama, bad management, bad leadership is like what we talked about, right? It's poor communication. It's expecting people assumed something or had knowledge they didn't, right? It's not letting them know what you really wanted, what good work looks like, all that stuff. This is all context engineering,
Hmm.
right? Which is just a similar to prompt engineering, but context engineering is kind of the other more important piece these days with AI. What do I mean by that? Like, I'm going to give a prompt to a chat. Is it in just like a virgin chat or is it in a project? what context, what documents, skills, reference templates, etc., access to code bases does that project have, right?
Mm-hmm.
What am I telling it to do? How am I breaking that down? How am I, big high level goal? What do I want it to do? What does the output need to look like? How deep do I want it to go? Right? Like how many questions? I say ask me like 5 or 6 questions when I'm prompting, right? If I want that, right?
Yeah.
Giving the other person right in that space to say, what questions do you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best people at context engineering and leveraging AI in that way end up becoming better and better and better communicators, because yes, you're talking to a machine, but at the same way, like those principles 100% apply to good professional communication. So I'll die on that hill. There's a lot of people that are like brain rot using AI. It's what's the weather today? And how many calories does mayonnaise have? And those people are not,
Right.
they're not improving their leadership communication by using AI. But people actually doing it right 100% are.
Yes, I could not agree more. I think that is one of the coolest things that AI has taught me personally is, to your point, to be a better communicator, to be clearer with the way that I communicate, to avoid assumptions that the other person, say, knows what I'm talking about, or does have the context behind why I asked the question the way I did, or all those kinds of things. So I could not agree with you more. Yeah. And it's exciting to see how it continues to evolve. Okay.
Yeah. And real quick, why, like the AI models, especially with the reasoning models and stuff, Opus 4.6, all this stuff, telling them why they're doing something and why doing a certain task within that project flow is important, is proving to be more effective than telling them how. And I think that's something where, you tell someone what to do, they may do it, but if you tell them and make them believe why it's important they do it that way, they're really going to do it that way.
Yeah, love that so much. Okay. All right. So pivoting the conversation a little bit just for fun. Imagine that you were to be offered $1 million to teach a masterclass on anything you want. Could be within your industry, but doesn't have to be. What would you choose to teach?
Okay. I have a question. Does this assume that I'm already capable and have enough expertise to actually teach this class, or is it like I choose this topic, I'm now an expert in that, and I get to teach it?
I like both options, but I'm going to go with option B, because you have $1 million to play with, right? So you could build up the expertise. Yeah.
Ooh. I would still say like building AI tools, AI agent systems, skills and sub agents and these flows, and really tactically executing that for medtech. And that goes from founder, innovator, to service provider, reg, quality, reimbursement, like all the way up through sales and marketing, and then like CDMO teams, doing contract manufacturing, doing this. Like I'm so passionate about it. And I just see that there's so much untapped opportunity that is the thing, I think. And like we are doing that, but not a masterclass, but like we are working with groups to do some of that. But it's just so much opportunity to do it. And I think there's like weird structural reasons why it's not being adopted the same, at the same clip it is in other industries. But, medtech's very rules-based game. You've got your guidance docs, you got your predicate devices, you got your clinical trial protocols, you got your stats analysis, you got your, XYZ, hospitals get paid a certain way, like lots of formulas, lots of reference material, lots of guidance docs. It's very kind of rules and order based system in a lot of ways. And biology has its own kind of proscriptive way that things happen. Right. So I just feel like it's so primed for it. And anyways, I want to see it adopted more so we can see like what's happening with software now, where, the cost to build and, produce and get software to market has almost collapsed, but compressed to, from like months, maybe years to, days and weeks. And, you got a $250 worth of like software subscriptions, Claude, this, that, the other. You can get it done in a week if you, 2 weeks, if you put your mind to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be an incredible masterclass. I like it. All right. And then how do you wish to be remembered after you leave this world?
Oof. God, what a good question, Lindsey. I hope to be remembered at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm definitely one of those people that's like, nobody cares. Nobody's thinking about you. You may have, I think there's like some healthy main character syndrome that people can have that gives them confidence. But at the end of the day, no one cares. Everyone's thinking about themselves.
Sure.
But if I am remembered, which I hope to be, I want to be viewed as like someone that was, I'd say, loved their family, was a good dad, good husband. I would say brought people joy, was like fun to be around, but like from a, interested in other people sense, genuinely cared about people. But I would say that on the professional side, like somebody that, you know, would like consistently just delivered an absurd amount of value, whether it was, running a business or coaching and developing people at a company or working on behalf of clients or trying to make a positive change. I would say impactful and valuable, with the
Yeah.
work that I'm doing. That's how I want to be remembered. I mean, we don't have big I don't want to be a unicorn billion-dollar company. I've like no, we have no desire to do that. We don't even have a desire to get acquired at any point.
Mm.
We're not raising money. We've deliberately chosen to bootstrap it. We frankly just want to employ really awesome, smart people that we work with, pay everybody well. And like I said, add an absurd amount of value, and joy to the people and the clients that we work with and like work at the company with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a absolutely wonderful legacy to aspire to. I love it. All right. And then final question. What is one thing that makes you smile every time you see or think about it?
Oh, I've got a 1-year-old kid. Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks, Austin Jones. So it's got to be him and my wife, of course. One thing that makes me smile though, every time I see it, you know, I'll cry at a good TikTok. Yeah,
yeah.
that's like a form of smiling, but I'm a pretty big softie, honestly. This is going to sound weird, but it's kind of those moments where, people, usually strangers, and usually people that don't look like each other, just show humanity to each other. And that could be like holding a door open for somebody, it could be small things, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I really love seeing those moments and capturing them like candidly,
Yeah.
just, oh, I was in a restaurant, I saw this thing happen.
Yeah.
I really love that these days.
Yeah. Yeah. We all need more of that these days too. So yeah, love it.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Spencer, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you and your time today. I
Yeah.
love what you're building in the medtech industry and cultivating community and resources and providing value. So just thank you for everything you're doing to change lives for a better world.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? I feel like you were so good, like with the questions and coming on the back of like my responses, but I have a question for you. Like, what about the med tech space like most excites you? It can be a specific technology, it can be a specific, company doing something, it can be anything. But what's most exciting to you, kind of looking at 2026 and kind of in the realm of med tech broadly?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So I love this industry in general, but there's something really special about the energy of being around people who truly care about making a difference. Part of the reason I started the Leading Difference was because I, when I first joined, had sort of noticed this stigma from people from the outside who weren't very familiar with the innovation, what it takes to get from, drawing to commercialization, just didn't know. And there was this stigma that people were here just for the money. And then I started meeting all of these incredible change makers who they had personal stories of what
Yeah.
they were seeing or a family member was impacted. And I just loved the fact that there were so many cool people doing such cool things and getting to play a small role in that was the coolest thing in the world. So, I say I happily stumbled into medtech 5 years ago and found my people in my happy place, haven't looked back. I love it. I love
Yeah.
being around people who are genuinely trying to do good things in the world. And I hear about new ideas every day, and I get excited probably almost equally about most of them because it's just cool to see. So I don't know. Does that
Yeah, it
answer your
is.
question?
No, it does. I mean, it really it all comes back to the patient at the end of the day. And I feel like when people think of like medical device stuff, like their minds immediately go to like striker sales reps or something. You know what I'm saying? And there's just so much more to it than that. And there's one of my favorite things about med tech is like the personalities, like you
Yes.
got your wacky you got your wacky inventors and, you got your straight laced regulatory people, but when you get to know them, they're absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
You got your attorneys, you got your
Yeah.
and every industry has their personalities, but I think med tech, you got your beefhead sales reps that are like posting, "What's up, guys? I'm here in the locker room in my scrubs and like Motivation Monday." You're like, "Oh my God." But it's just like all these personalities.
Yes.
And go to these conferences and you just see 50 of the same person, but they're each different. They have their own dreams and conflicts and ideas and whatever, but they're still like so in the same box in some ways. I think that's one of the funnier things about med tech that just makes it quirky.
Yes. I love it. And I also love the amount of respect that I see shared amongst people of very, very different backgrounds and areas of expertise. And that was one of the things that made me fall in love with the industry too. I was like, for instance, I'm in marketing and business development. So I play a very small role in sharing about these devices, but the engineers that I work with and the consultants that I work with and everybody in the ecosystem is always just, wow, well, I can't do what you're doing. And so I think what you're doing is fantastic. And so there's this mutual respect that I think is super cool about being here too. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We could keep going for days.
I know.
On this. I know we have to wrap it, but
Yep.
but yeah. Well, Lindsey, thank you for having me. Seriously, this was a blast, and I'll just maybe like quick sign off plug or something
Yeah,
here.
please.
Anybody that's listening to this is like interested in leveraging AI in med tech, or for you personally or whatever, follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content about it, talk about it a lot on the podcast. But then if you're on the founder side, if you're an innovator, like join XO Medtech. If you're on the CDMO side, if you're, on a sales and marketing team, contract manufacturer, CDMO, even like design development groups, that kind of stuff, and you are like, we know we need to be using AI to better leverage XYZ or do this thing. Or we have HubSpot and this thing and that thing, and none of it works together well. And we've got too many tools, whatever. Just hit me up. Let's have a conversation. We're doing some absolutely incredible things, leveraging AI, giving these sales and marketing teams like crazy leverage. So yeah, just drop a DM. I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Sounds good. And we are so honored to be making a donation on your behalf as a thank you for your time today to the Polaris Project, which is a non-governmental organization that works to combat and prevent sex and labor trafficking in North America. So thank you for choosing that organization to support. And we wish you continued success as you work to change lives for a better world. Looking forward to seeing the future of all the good things that you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Lindsey. Take care.
All right. Bye.
The Leading Difference is brought to you by Velentium Medical. Velentium Medical is a full-service CDMO serving medtech clients worldwide to securely design, manufacture, and test Class 2 and Class 3 medical devices. Velentium Medical's 4 units include research and development, pairing electronic and mechanical design, embedded firmware, mobile app development, and cloud systems, with the human factor studies and systems engineering necessary to streamline medical device regulatory approval. Contract manufacturing, building medical products at the prototype, clinical, and commercial levels in the U.S. as well as in low-cost regions in 1345 certified and FDA-registered Class 7 clean rooms. Cybersecurity, generating the 12 cybersecurity design artifacts required for FDA submission. And automated test systems, assuring that every device produced is exactly the same as the device that was approved. Visit ValentiumMedical.com to explore how we can work together to change lives for a better world.